General, if you were advising the president today, broaden out for us, what would you say is the single biggest threat to America's national security in this year and the coming years?
I think it has to be all China all the time. China is a possible adversary. It's certainly a very, very severe competitor right now in the global economy. It's heartening to see that the two presidents met back late last year in Korea. It's good to see that there are additional meetings scheduled for this year, the first one coming up in April. But at the end of the day, there are real structural differences here. Deterrence in the Indo-Pacific really is the major mission of the U.S. military, noting that, yes, the administration has added new emphasis to securing our borders, activities in the Western Hemisphere, and so forth. But at the
That was retired General David Petraeus, who now runs Mideast operations for KKR. He joined me on Friday on this program, warning that China represents the largest foreign threat to the United States. Russia, China, and Iran deploying naval vessels for joint military exercises in the Strait of Hormuz, a move seen as Tehran's response to increased U.S. military presence in the region. All of this following a second round of nuclear talks between the U.S. and Iran. Joining me now to break it all down is the Gatestone Institute Senior Fellow, Gordon Chang. Gordon, good to see you. Thank you for being here. And the Strait of Hormuz is one of the world's most strategic choke points in global trade. Much of the oil is transported through that waterway. Your reaction?
Yeah, 20% of the world's oil transits that strait. And yesterday, Russia's presidential assistant said that Chinese and Russian vessels were already in the strait. Now, I don't know if that's true or not, but that means, we've got a lot of U.S. naval presence off the coast of Iran. And so you have Russia, China, Iran, and the U.S. all in close proximity. And that is certainly one of the building blocks of war. I mean, that is a precondition when you have such close proximity.
I mean, China claims it's our friend, and yet are they not sending components to Iran in this fight? And buying oil?
Yeah, they're sending radars. Now, on January 3, we know that the Chinese radars and their integrated command systems didn't work in Venezuela because they didn't see 150 American aircraft in or near Venezuelan airspace. I suspect that the Chinese are sending upgraded versions of their radars to Iran, and that means maybe our stealth aircraft will not be so stealthy after all.
And yet China says it is now offering new humanitarian aid to Ukraine, claiming to seek a constructive role in ending the crisis, something President Trump has been focused on. They're denying Russia any lethal weaponry, they claim. U.S. officials are calling out Beijing for increasingly buying and relying on Russian oil. U.S. Ambassador to NATO Matthew Whitaker added, quote, "This war is being enabled by China." Early February estimates forecast a new record for Russian oil exports to China, 2 million barrels a day expected in February. Gordon.
Yeah. Russia would not be in this war without China's assistance. And we knew within 30 days of the start of the war in February 2022 that China was providing lethal assistance to Russia. Since then, we've learned that support has been across the board. It's been the increased commodity purchases, diplomatic support, propaganda support, quote-unquote dual-use items. And I also think that the Chinese green-lighted the North Korean deployment to Russia. So really what we have is Beijing is there. Remember, they told the European Union in the middle of last year that China does not want to see this war end.
Yeah, and in the same time, China is celebrating the Lunar Year. They're showcasing humanoid robots during the country's Lunar New Year celebrations. Have you seen these robots? This is scary stuff. They performed a lengthy martial arts demonstration wielding swords, poles, and nunchucks in sophisticated fight sequences. China accounted for 90% of the roughly 13,000 humanoid robots shipped globally last year, Gordon. These are all robots.
Yes, and these are the world's most capable humanoid robots, and China dominates the market. The story here, though, is that the U.S. should not be supplying technology to China. So, for instance, we have the green lighting of the H200 chip of NVIDIA can now be sold to China. We shouldn't be doing that, because without American technology, China can't be doing stuff like this.
You know, it's scary because they could be using robots in the military, and I mean, I would expect that if you're putting robots in a fight, you're going to do, if it works, you're going to do that increasingly. Why put our men and women in harm's way when you can do a machine?
Yeah. China has never said it will not have robots make autonomous decisions. We want the Chinese to say you can't use AI for autonomous decisions to kill. China refuses to make that pledge. Also, China refuses to say it will not use AI in making the decisions to launch nuclear weapons, that these would be machine-controlled nukes.
Yeah.
And we don't want them to do that, but they won't make that pledge either.
We're coming out with a new Fox Nation special that I'm working on right now called The Arsenal. And we're comparing the U.S. to China in terms of the war machines. That's going to be out on Fox Nation very soon. How would you say these robots compare to U.S. robots?
They're better. And we know that because we can see, for instance, Elon Musk robots, which are really good. But the point is the Chinese are better. Now, the Chinese are not as good as they say they are. Like, these robots are either pre-programmed or they're controlled by humans. They are not autonomous, as Beijing claims. But nonetheless, these are really, really good, Maria. And that means we need to start denying technology to the Chinese because we supplied a lot of it. And that's the reason why China's been able to make a lot of progress, because they build on our tech.
Yeah, and the president has this meeting with Xi Jinping in April, and he said he had a very good phone call with Xi Jinping. I assume, I'm making an assumption, that the president wants to go to Beijing when he goes to meet Xi Jinping and have a nice, calm, friendly backdrop. So maybe that's sort of the theme going into it. But how do things change after the meeting? What do you want to see accomplished at that meeting?
Well, I'd like to see
a long list, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a very long list. But the point is, I don't believe President Trump should be making concessions to the Chinese beforehand. Keir Starmer did that by greenlighting the mega embassy, and they still gave him a hard time. President Trump is not putting in place a lot of crucial tech restrictions. So, for instance, the Commerce Department refused to put in place a ban on the installation of Chinese equipment in data centers. And that means the Chinese can steal the data in those data centers and maybe even remotely control them, as a number of people have talked about. So we shouldn't be making these concessions to China at any time, and we shouldn't be making them especially in the run-up to the meeting with Xi Jinping, because that does not buy goodwill. The Chinese just pocket the concessions and ask for more.
All right, bottom line, why wouldn't they steal the data? They've stolen intellectual property for decades, so why not? Gordon, we got to run, but great conversation as always. Good to see you, sir.